Charlotte Brontë Jane Eyre, published in 1847, stands as a monumental work that continues to resonate with readers across the centuries. This novel operates as a profound proto-feminist declaration, functioning as a powerful exploration of a woman's unwavering assertion of her subjective self and her moral self-esteem in the face of formidable patriarchal structures. The narrative chronicles the extraordinary journey of its titular protagonist, tracing her path from a neglected and marginalized orphan to an independent woman who ultimately secures love and self-fulfillment entirely on her own terms. Through Jane's unyielding commitment to her principles and personal honor, even when confronted by severe hardship and intense temptation, Brontë crafts a heroine of remarkable psychological depth and fierce independence. This character directly challenges the restrictive Victorian gender roles and rigid class distinctions that define the era. The novel operates as more than a simple romance, serving instead as a comprehensive examination of female independence and the complex moral dilemmas women faced. Charlotte Brontë's own life experiences undeniably shape the intricate contours of this narrative. Growing up within a devout but often deeply challenging environment and enduring profound personal losses imbued the author with a profound understanding of human resilience and the complex nature of faith. Jane's journey is not merely a fictional construct. It stands as a testament to Brontë's own negotiation between the rigid societal norms of Victorian England and her fiercely held moral philosophy. The novel functions as a critical lens through which we examine the societal constraints of the era, particularly regarding the strict gender roles, entrenched class distinctions, and the heavy moral burdens women were forced to carry. Brontë's personal faith, which was characterized by an active and critical engagement rather than passive submission, is directly mirrored in Jane's spiritual development. This alignment sets the protagonist apart from the conventional religiosity often imposed upon women of her time, highlighting a distinct path toward intellectual and moral self-determination. At its core, the novel operates as a powerful anthem for personal independence and moral honor, functioning literally as a woman's declaration of independence. Jane's journey serves as a testament to her unshakable insistence on self-respect and personal integrity. She resolutely rejects societal expectations that would diminish her worth, vowing instead to live by her own unwavering principles. This pursuit of personal autonomy and equality, especially within the suffocating confines of Victorian society, positions Jane as a defiant figure who fiercely defends her fate. She strives for a life of dignity against overwhelming odds, refusing to compromise her values for convenience or security. The narrative critically examines the misuse of wealth, the dogmas of organized religion, and the pervasive social inequalities of the time. These explorations offer insights that remain remarkably relevant for understanding contemporary societal norms. Brontë's assertion that conventionality is not morality perfectly encapsulates Jane's lifelong struggle against societal expectations that consistently failed to align with her deeply held ethical principles. Jane Eyre herself stands as a literary marvel, a character who deliberately defies easy categorization. The novel, told entirely from her first-person perspective, immerses the reader completely within her inner world, allowing for a deep dive into her complex psychology and moral philosophy. This unique narrative voice moves far beyond superficial female archetypes, revealing a protagonist with profound human depth and intellectual rigor. Jane's moral compass is not derived from external doctrines alone. It is firmly rooted in an unshakable personal integrity that guides her through every crisis. Her journey functions as a classic example of the Bildungsroman genre, carefully tracing her moral and psychological growth from a wronged child at Gateshead Hall to a fully self-assured adult. Her quest for independence is thoroughly multifaceted, encompassing financial stability, intellectual freedom, and personal autonomy. This pursuit starkly contrasts with the severely limited roles afforded to women in her era. Brontë's work remains a seminal piece of feminist literature, articulating female subjectivity and offering a sharp critique of patriarchal power by presenting a protagonist who pursues intellectual freedom, values moral integrity above all else, and boldly asserts her right to desire and her own subjective experience. Jane seeks not just romantic love, but a genuine equality in marriage, a revolutionary concept that highlights her transformation from a dependent orphan into a strong, autonomous woman. Her enduring legacy lies in her eloquent yearning for equality and her powerful demand to be recognized as a complete human being. The narrative serves as a defiant roar against the stifling confines of 19th-century patriarchal society. More than a mere novel, it operates as a potent critique of institutions and social orders that actively sought to subjugate female will. Championing instead the radical ideals of female independence, autonomy, and unwavering moral integrity. This proto-feminist masterpiece does not simply suggest that women deserve rights. It fundamentally argues for their inherent equality and their absolute right to self-determination, even when such aspirations clash violently with societal expectations. The story unflinchingly dissects the oppressive structures that defined Victorian womanhood. From the blatant hypocrisy of religious figures like Mr. Brocklehurst, who weaponized faith to enforce conformity and inflict humiliation at Load School, to the flawed and domineering authority of Edward Rochester, Jane constantly confronts the myriad ways men and institutions sought to control and diminish her. The novel also takes direct aim at rigid Victorian gender roles, which relegated women to strictly subservient positions, their lives supposedly dedicated solely to domesticity and marriage. Brontë masterfully exposes the cruelty of these norms, highlighting not only the severe constraints on female autonomy, but also the deeply intertwined struggles of social class. Through sharp satire, particularly the biting criticism directed at characters like Brocklehurst, Brontë peels back the veneer of respectability to reveal the corrupting influence and underlying anxieties festering within a society so rigidly defined by gender and class. The very act of Jane's defiance, her complete refusal to be cowed by patriarchal authority, proved so subversive that it deeply shocked Victorian critics, many of whom condemned the novel for its perceived immorality. Brontë masterfully employs potent symbolism to articulate the internal and external battles Jane endures throughout her life. Perhaps the most visceral and haunting symbol is the Red Room. This crimson-hued chamber is not merely a physical setting. It operates as a suffocating embodiment of the oppressive patriarchal society that seeks to crush Jane's spirit. The room represents the violent repression of women, the profound trauma of childhood isolation, and Jane's desperate, ongoing struggle for independence and self-discovery. The blood-red furnishings serve as a stark visual cue, evoking the simmering anger and unexpressed passion that Jane harbored within her solitary confinement. It remains a space steeped in violence, trauma, and an unsettling sense of the supernatural, directly linked to her early emotional insecurity. As Jane's life unfolds, Thornfield Hall itself becomes a psychological mirror to her evolving self, functioning as a Gothic landmark that shapes the narrative. Its imposing structure and carefully hidden secrets reflect Jane's own internal complexities and the veiled dangers lurking beneath the surface of polite society. Within those walls, the tragic figure of Bertha Mason emerges as a powerful symbol of female repression within the patriarchal structure. Her unrestrained fury, confined to the attic, and her symbolic act of tearing the wedding veil during Jane's interrupted nuptials, represent not only Rochester's betrayal, but the inherent injustice faced by women trapped in such a system. Furthermore, the elemental forces of fire and ice are deployed throughout the narrative to represent the delicate balance of human emotions. This constant negotiation defines Jane's experience, as she carefully navigates her passionate desires alongside her steadfast commitment to moral rectitude. The relationship between Jane Eyre and Edward Rochester operates as far more than a conventional fairy tale romance. It functions instead as a gritty and uncomfortable exploration of power, morality, and the arduous pursuit of equality within the rigid framework of 19th-century society. From the very outset, their bond is marked by profound inequality and complex power dynamics. Rochester, who is decades older and serves as Jane's employer, holds a vast position of social and economic authority, creating a disparity that forms the bedrock of their early interactions. This imbalance is never romanticized. It serves as a crucial element in the novel's larger message about entrenched societal structures. Jane, however, consistently refuses to accept the role of a passive subordinate. She actively asserts herself as Rochester's intellectual and spiritual equal, taking a radical stance that directly challenges prevailing notions of female inferiority. Their connection, though fraught with deception and inherent imbalance, demonstrates two complicated individuals attempting to forge a union based on mutual respect and genuine human connection rather than societal dictates. The dramatic revelation of Rochester's existing marriage compels Jane to exercise her profound moral autonomy. Her decisive choice to leave him, despite her deep affection and Rochester's genuine despair, underscores her unwavering commitment to her principles. This act of self-preservation and moral integrity remains paramount, prioritizing her honor above all temporary comforts. The subsequent rebalancing of power occurs dramatically after Rochester's devastating injuries. His blindness and physical maiming render him dependent on Jane, creating a profound shift that forces him to rely entirely on her strength and compassion. Symbolically, his blindness means he must finally see Jane clearly, not as an employee or a subordinate, but as a true equal partner. This painful and transformative arc allows for a more equitable foundation for their eventual union, one built entirely on shared vulnerability and mutual reliance. The narrative masterfully weaves the conventions of the Gothic tradition into its very fabric, utilizing these elements not merely for atmospheric effect, but to externalize Jane's profound psychological turmoil and the inherent dangers of a constrained female existence. The story is replete with classic Gothic components, including the brooding and mysterious setting of Thornfield Hall, a space haunted by echoing laughter and shrouded in dark secrets. Unexplained fires and a palpable sense of dread permeate specific areas of the estate, creating an environment of constant tension. These chilling manifestations are never simply supernatural occurrences. They serve as potent metaphors for Jane's inner battles, her carefully repressed emotions, and the deep anxieties that plague a woman navigating a world that constantly seeks to silence her voice. The eerie atmosphere and psychological torment inherent in the Gothic style underscore the corrupting influences within Victorian society and the widespread anxieties surrounding a woman's proper place. The novel's use of the Gothic tradition blends seamlessly with its sharp social commentary and its powerful portrayal of the Bildungsroman structure, carefully detailing Jane's psychological, moral, and overall development as she comes of age. Furthermore, the narrative occasionally dips into the realm of Orientalism, utilizing descriptive language that hints at colonial otherness and the complex realities of empire. This subtle approach critiques the prevailing modes of understanding and describing the foreign, and its perceived potential to contaminate or disrupt the familiar social order. This deliberate fusion of Gothic eeriness with sharp social critique allows Brontë to thoroughly explore the darker undercurrents of her society and the intricate internal landscape of a woman striving for absolute freedom and selfhood. Charlotte Brontë Jane Eyre stands as a foundational text within the broader landscape of feminist literature, offering a searingly honest portrayal of a woman's relentless struggle for autonomy in a rigidly patriarchal Victorian society. More than a simple romance, the novel acts as a profound spiritual and moral odyssey, charting Jane's journey as a continuous negotiation between the oppressive dictates of dogmatic religious structures and her own deeply ingrained personal moral philosophy. This guiding philosophy is never inherited passively. It is meticulously authored through experience, operating as an active act of decolonizing the self and other, where Jane deliberately rejects externally imposed narratives to forge her own distinct identity and agency. Her moral compass, carefully calibrated to justice, reciprocity, and emotional truth, emerges as a direct product of her lived experience, particularly her prolonged marginalization. The novel champions the individual's profound meaning-making power, insisting on Jane's absolute right to define her own reality, her faith, and her loves. This unwavering insistence transforms the narrative into a revolutionary stand against a world that frequently compels women to adopt rigid masculine norms merely to be recognized as valid participants in society. Jane's journey from an orphan outsider to a woman of complete self-possession directly challenges prevailing gender expectations, offering enduring insights into personal agency and human dignity. The novel's core arguments, when interpreted through a feminist lens, highlight Jane's unwavering claim to her own humanity, framing her choices as a revolutionary and necessary stand. This positions the work as a definitive declaration of feminine independence, a proto-feminist novel that champions women's rights and emphasizes the paramount importance of female independence. Jane's steadfast refusal to be controlled by men and her strict adherence to her moral principles remain central to this powerful declaration. At the heart of the novel's enduring power lies Jane's unwavering commitment to moral integrity and profound self-respect. Her ethical framework operates not as a matter of blind adherence to religious dogma, but as an internally derived system that stands as a testament to her intrinsic sense of justice. This personal integrity forms the absolute bedrock of her character, representing an unshakable adherence to her principles even when faced with immense social pressure and intense personal temptation. Jane's journey underscores a vital truth about human experience, which is that true independence is fundamentally epistemological. It concerns the inherent right to define one's own truth, faith, and love. This capacity for self-definition, this essential meaning-making power, represents a crucial aspect of her ultimate liberation. Jane's moral choices, particularly her decisive rejection of Rochester upon discovering his existing marriage, function as pivotal acts of feminine independence. These decisions are never driven by external validation. They are guided strictly by an internal compass, illustrating how our daily decisions actively shape our destinies. The narrative explores the intricate dance between human emotions and ethical responsibility, demonstrating that integrity is never merely an abstract concept. It remains a lived practice that continuously shapes one's life trajectory. Jane's resilience, her quiet dignity, and her unwavering quest for independence serve as a powerful blueprint for constructing a stable self in a world often deliberately designed to deny that possibility. Charlotte Brontë, operating as a product of 19th-century women writers, wielded her pen as a powerful instrument of deliberate social critique. Jane Eyre emerged from a rich literary tradition where women writers, facing severe societal limitations, consistently found innovative ways to express dissent and challenge established norms. The novel's original preface directly notes the widespread moral outrage that followed its publication, serving as a testament to its transgressive nature. In an era where forthright assertions of female agency were routinely met with institutional hostility, Brontë, much like her contemporaries and intellectual precursors such as Mary Wollstonecraft, the author of A Vindication of the Rights of Women, grappled extensively with the complexities of gender roles, class distinctions, and the heavy moral dilemmas inherent in Victorian society. The narrative's critique extends directly to the pervasive influence of oppressive evangelicalism, a force vividly illustrated through characters like Mr. Brocklehurst and his severe hypocritical methods. The story of Helen Burns raises deeply disturbing questions about a woman's severely limited position within a society often characterized by debased masculinity, forcing readers to consider what avenues were truly available for the serious expression of a woman's inner self. Jane's own experience, frequently marked by righteous anger at systemic injustice and a deep longing for a room and a voice of her own, directly echoes Virginia Woolf's later assertion regarding the absolute necessity of financial independence and personal space for intellectual and creative freedom. The novel therefore functions not only as a compelling personal narrative, but as a broader, unflinching commentary on social inequality and the relentless struggle for individual empowerment. Religion and spirituality operate as central, yet critically examined forces within the narrative. Jane's spiritual journey never involves passive acceptance. It requires an active, critical engagement with the rigid patriarchal religious doctrines that constantly attempt to shape her worldview. She repeatedly encounters a form of oppressive evangelicalism, exemplified by the hypocritical pronouncements and severe discipline meted out by institutional figures like Mr. Brocklehurst. However, she also discovers profound solace and an entirely different kind of spiritual guidance in the quiet resilience of Helen Burns, who, despite enduring immense suffering, consistently embodies a deep and abiding inner peace. Jane's faith is never dogmatic or rigid. It remains deeply personal and constantly questioning. She wrestles with her beliefs, challenges authority, and ultimately constructs her own entirely unique moral and spiritual understanding. Her journey clearly illustrates that true spirituality is rarely found in blind external adherence to prescribed rituals or rigid doctrines. Instead, it emerges from an internal calibration of one's soul and conscience. The narrative challenges the pervasive notion that faith must remain subservient to patriarchal authority, suggesting instead that a sincere spiritual life remains intrinsically linked to one's moral integrity and self-respect. This critical engagement with organized religion highlights Jane's relentless quest for authenticity, where her own carefully considered understanding of divine principles remains paramount, standing in stark contrast to mere outward displays of piety. Charlotte Brontë's Jane Eyre, upon its initial release in 1847, immediately ignited fervent public discussion and considerable cultural controversy. It swiftly ascended to bestseller status, with its undeniable power to evoke deep emotional responses and its unflinching psychological depth capturing the public imagination entirely. Yet this remarkable commercial success was met with a sharp and vocal institutional backlash. Critics, heavily steeped in the strict conventions of Victorian society, routinely condemned the novel for its perceived immorality and its audacious challenge to the established social order. Jane's passionate expressions of romantic and intellectual desire, alongside her defiant stance against patriarchal authority, proved particularly unsettling to many contemporary reviewers. They viewed her character as a dangerous deviation from the highly idealized standard of passive Victorian womanhood. Despite this initial wave of condemnation, the novel's enduring relevance has firmly cemented its place as a seminal work of proto-feminist literature. Jane Eyre fundamentally innovated literary portrayals of women, moving decisively beyond dominant cultural archetypes to present a complex, morally conscious, and entirely self-regulating individual. Its thorough exploration of complex power dynamics, the intricate intersection of class and gender, the profound struggle for self-respect under severe social oppression, and the intricate nature of passionate relationships continues to resonate deeply across generations. The novel remains a potent affirmation of a woman's inherent honor and serves as a lasting blueprint for declaring one's existence with unwavering integrity. When placed directly alongside its Victorian contemporaries, Jane Eyre stands out dramatically for its radical departure from conventional narrative structures. While many novels of that era explored familiar themes of social mobility, arranged marriage, and public morality, very few dared to grant their female protagonists such a fiercely independent inner life and such an unyielding demand for personal autonomy. Works by authors like Jane Austen, for instance, often depict heroines carefully navigating strict societal expectations within a more defined and structured framework. Austen's protagonists typically seek a suitable and economically sound marriage as a primary means of securing their social standing, with their independence often expressed through sharp wit and social discernment rather than outright systemic defiance. In sharp contrast, Charlotte Brontë Jane actively and deliberately rebels against those same societal constraints. Her quest for personal freedom extends far beyond the simple goal of finding a suitable romantic match. It centers entirely on establishing her own subjective truth and maintaining her moral self-esteem. The novel critiques social inequality and the restrictive gender roles of the era with a ferocity that was exceptionally rare for its time. While other contemporary novels might gently hint at the limitations placed upon women, Jane Eyre directly and forcefully confronts them, thoroughly exposing the hypocrisy and systemic injustice inherent in patriarchal structures. Jane's journey, therefore, represents a far more profound and direct challenge to the established status quo, firmly marking the text as a pivotal milestone in the evolution of the female Bildungsroman and a clear precursor to later feminist literary movements. The enduring power of this narrative is vividly demonstrated through its countless modern interpretations and cultural adaptations. From classic film and television productions to contemporary literary reimaginings, Jane's story continues to be carefully re-examined and creatively reimagined, consistently reflecting shifting cultural anxieties and evolving perspectives on gender, power, and personal agency. These adaptations frequently engage directly with the novel's most critical debates, sometimes deliberately softening Jane's more radical defiance to suit contemporary tastes, while others deliberately delve deeper into its feminist and post-colonial dimensions. A particularly notable example appears in Jean Rhys's Wide Sargasso Sea, which offers a powerful and haunting prequel told entirely from the perspective of Bertha Mason, Rochester's first wife. This profound reinterpretation actively challenges the traditional reader perception of both Jane and Rochester, thoroughly exploring the colonial and psychological underpinnings of their relationship, while highlighting the deliberate silences within Bronte's original narrative. Other modern adaptations have further explored Jane's self-possession and her relentless quest for an equal partnership, consistently showcasing how her struggle for independence and dignity remains profoundly relevant in contemporary society. These continuous reinterpretations serve as highly accurate barometers of changing cultural discourse, proving that Jane Eyre's voice continues to echo loudly and inspire new generations of readers and thinkers. Ultimately, Jane Eyre stands as a definitive woman's declaration of independence and honor. Charlotte Brontë masterfully crafts a narrative that forcefully asserts a woman's subjective self and moral self-esteem in direct defiance of patriarchal structures. Jane's journey is never simply one of personal romantic triumph. It functions as a profound and lasting commentary on feminism, personal independence, and the arduous yet absolutely essential process of human identity formation. Her resilience, her unwavering commitment to self-respect, and her relentless struggle for personal freedom in a convention-bound society offer enduring insight into the true nature of personal agency. The novel actively champions proto-feminist ideals, with Jane's absolute refusal to be controlled by men and her steadfast adherence to moral principles serving as powerful, defining examples. Her quest for autonomy is never merely economic or social in nature. It is deeply epistemological, representing the fundamental right to define her own truth, faith, and love. As Jane herself firmly asserts, conventionality is never synonymous with morality. Her insistence on living strictly by her own principles, valuing her dignity far above wealth or social status, and demanding complete intellectual and emotional equality in her relationships, all coalesce into a radical and enduring vision of the sovereign self. Jane Eyre is never just a fictional character. She remains an embodiment of the unensnared bird, a lasting testament to the enduring power of a woman's inherent honor, and a permanent blueprint for declaring one's existence with absolute integrity and unyielding self-worth. Charlotte Brontë Jane Eyre stands as a monumental declaration of feminine independence and honor, operating as a powerful rejoinder to the patriarchal strictures of Victorian society. More than just a narrative, it functions as a profound exploration of the sovereign self, serving as a testament to the formation of an individual consciousness that fiercely defends its moral integrity. While classic adaptations have occasionally softened Jane's radical edge, contemporary analysis consistently delves into her complex inner world and her trenchant critiques of societal norms. The very form of her first-person narration becomes a vital conduit for her liberation, effectively transforming lived experience into authorial agency and establishing a literary act of profound self-creation. The enduring legacy of the novel remains deeply intertwined with its exploration of feminist identity and self-respect. Jane's journey moving from an orphaned outsider to a woman of profound self-possession directly challenges the rigid gender expectations of her era. Her moral conviction, independence, and inner strength position her as a quintessential exemplar of feminist accomplishment. Central to her triumph lies the crucial understanding that true fulfillment requires not immediate gratification of desire, but the unwavering choice of integrity, even at significant personal cost. Her departure from Rochester upon discovering his existing marriage perfectly exemplifies this principle, representing a courageous act that prioritizes core values over personal gratification. This moral courage operates not merely as a character trait, but as the absolute bedrock upon which her agency is built. The narrative champions a proto-feminist vision, actively advocating for women's rights and the critical importance of female autonomy. Jane's refusal to be subjugated by men and her resolute defense of her ethical compass underscore her complete agency. Her journey unfolds as a compelling narrative of resilience, self-discovery, and the relentless pursuit of independence. From a troubled orphan, she steadily evolves into a self-assured woman who navigates and confronts societal constraints, ultimately finding happiness and freedom by forging her own distinct identity. Her moral choices, carefully shaped by both societal pressures and personal experiences, reveal an evolving set of principles, deep compassion, and a profound drive for self-autonomy. Jane's equality with Rochester is never a matter of social standing or material fortune. It remains a profound equality of spirit, intellect, and morality. Her inherent self-confidence, coupled with her thoroughly tested integrity, demonstrates a remarkable ability to reconcile conflicting aspects of her being, ultimately achieving a hard-won inner peace. Indeed, the novel serves as a profound meditation on feminist identity and self-respect, offering enduring insights into the nature of personal agency and human dignity. Her capacity to chart her own course and make independent life choices represents the very essence of feminist strength. The ongoing debate surrounding the novel's primary feminist designation persists, particularly when considering Jane's eventual marriage and pregnancy. These narrative developments are not interpreted as a wholesale sacrifice of her hard-won self-sufficiency. They function instead as a nuanced portrayal of independence, operating within the strict social realities of the time. The text actively interrogates the very conventions of autobiography and the representation of personality, a critical engagement that distinguishes it from its contemporaries. Comparisons to Jane Austen and George Eliot further illuminate the novel's unique contribution to literary discourse on character and selfhood. The text's engagement with concepts of othering within a feminist framework, alongside analyses of translation practices that explore feminine affinities and paratextual approaches, underscore the vital relational dynamics at play in shaping and disseminating cultural meaning. The narrative's complexity is further illuminated by its engagement with broader philosophical and psychological concepts. Theories of emotion, object relations, pleasure, and desire provide a rich backdrop for understanding Jane's intricate internal life. Concepts like reactance and compliance, alongside anticipated regret, offer valuable frameworks for analyzing her individual agency within complex social and psychological contexts. The encoding and decoding model highlights how narratives are carefully constructed and perceived. Directly mirroring the varied interpretations the novel has undergone across different eras. Furthermore, the philosophical underpinnings of justice, particularly referencing the frameworks of John Rawls, offer a distinct lens through which to view Jane's quest for a just and dignified existence. The notion of observance as a virtue, and its direct relation to worship and honor, alongside the careful distinction between voluntary acts and those driven by overwhelming passion, provides a robust ethical framework for understanding her moral decision-making. This framework recognizes that intense passion can diminish the voluntary aspect of an act, thereby influencing moral judgment. The narrative also draws upon historical parallels, examining the struggles for agency and survival faced by figures like Anne Boleyn, and the highly precarious political position of Queen Elizabeth I. The idealized portrayal of Corinne, representing the timeless essence of Italy, contrasts sharply with the political fragmentation and harsh historical realities Jane herself must navigate. The text highlights the female experience in colonial contexts, noting how women consistently developed unpredictable responses and formed their own organizations to exert political leverage, even when explicitly denigrated by institutional powers. This resonates powerfully with Jane's consistent subversion of patriarchal control. The fundamental human drive to build a meaningful life through love, connection, and a conscious acceptance of our place in the larger scheme of existence offers a profound philosophical perspective on Jane's ultimate quest for fulfillment. The critical examination of women's investment in appearance, linking cosmetic voluntarism and beauty standards to complex notions of aesthetic value and moral value, directly informs the novel's sharp social commentary. Finally, the narrative acknowledges the historical context of the emancipation of women and Charlotte Bronte's own nuanced response to that movement, underscoring the complex reception and evolving understanding of feminist ideals. Scholarly observations by figures like Sally Shuttleworth suggest Jane's profound ambivalence towards absolute independence, highlighting the sophisticated and realistic portrayal of women's agency within the narrative. Ultimately, the novel empowers readers to reflect on their own identities and the societal structures that shape them, offering enduring lessons about self-assertion that remain profoundly relevant. The text is consistently recognized as a compelling literary work and a profound commentary on feminism and independence, with Jane's inner strength and her determination to define her own identity, solidifying her status as a powerful feminist icon. A meticulous examination of the narrative confirms its complete adherence to the core themes of feminine independence, honor, and self-assertion. The story flows logically, weaving together these multifaceted concepts as Jane moves from a liminal existence as a quiet observer to her assertive declaration of self-worth, firmly establishing herself as her own mistress. Each stage of Jane's journey is supported by direct narrative evidence and careful interpretation of her psychological development. The analysis accurately captures the novel's essential role as a case study in the formation of a sovereign self, acknowledging how early adaptations sometimes diluted its radicalism, while contemporary engagements consistently delve deeper into its complexities. The significance of Jean Rhys's Wide Sargasso Sea as a post-colonial counter-narrative remains implicitly understood within the broader context of ongoing reinterpretation, actively reframing the original text and highlighting the symbolic liminality of Jane standing half inside and half outside established social boundaries, a position representing her constant potential for reimagining her own reality. The fire-breathing quality of Jane's spirit and the duality of her being almost vanquished but also consistently vanquishing are effectively integrated to illustrate the intertwined nature of rebellion and reconciliation in her consciousness. This mirrors the persistent conflict between irreconcilable oppositions like nature and culture, and social identity versus individual integrity. The interpretation of her first-person narrative as a primary mechanism for liberation and authorial agency remains central to the entire analysis. The acknowledgement of her literary contemporaries and favorable comparisons to established authors like Austen, alongside the enigmatic inscriptions and historical records surrounding the author's own life, are carefully woven into the narrative to underscore her enduring significance and the persistent questions surrounding her creative process. The early critical responses that viewed Jane with deep suspicion, labeling her a flippant actress or a mere heathen mind operating as a law unto itself, serve as vital evidence of societal anxiety surrounding female character formation and rigid expectations. These reactions directly link to Jane's declaration of self-worth and economic independence as absolutely essential to her autonomy. The metaphorical application of economic concepts effectively illuminates her strategic decision-making within the broader context of her financial realities. Feminist critiques, particularly concerning the mechanisms of othering, are thoroughly addressed, highlighting the critical importance of reclaiming marginalized voices. The narrative consistently emphasizes the novel's core tenets, stressing the importance of choosing integrity over desire, highlighting Jane's profound moral courage, her status as a proto-feminist pioneer, and the central themes of resilience, self-discovery, and the relentless quest for independence. The story accurately portrays Jane's journey as one of continuously defining her own identity and achieving genuine personal freedom. The text correctly identifies Jane's equality with Rochester as predicated on an equality of spirit, intellect, and morality, and her remarkable capacity to balance conflicting aspects of herself for lasting inner peace. The novel's function as a deep meditation on feminist identity and self-respect remains prominently featured, with Jane's ability to define her own path standing as a testament to enduring feminist strength. The ongoing debate regarding her eventual marriage and pregnancy is carefully acknowledged, alongside the understanding that these developments do not negate her hard-won self-sufficiency. The interrogation of autobiographical conventions and the representation of personality is fully reflected in the discussion of her unique contribution to literary discourse. The narrative successfully incorporates the historical and societal parallels, the philosophical underpinnings of a meaningful life, and the critique of societal pressures related to appearance and morality. The complex reception of feminist ideals in the 19th century is carefully acknowledged, alongside the nuanced portrayal of ambivalence towards independence. The concluding observations solidify Jane's portrayal as a definitive figure of resilience, independence, and identity formation who insists on living strictly by her own principles. Her journey champions feminist strength by choosing her own path and making independent life choices, offering a profound reflection on resilience, self-respect, and the struggle for independence. The narrative emphasizes Jane's moral courage and inner strength as defining traits, cementing her legacy as a powerful exemplar of feminist accomplishment and a timeless voice for human dignity.